That was me, age 7. I thought fashion was magic. Turns out it's a lot more complicated than that. I had a blog at 7 talking about clothes. Back then, I didn't know about greenwashing or fast fashion or what it actually costs to make a $5 shirt. And now I do, and I'm trying to do better. So, welcome to the Lexy Show, Fashion That Gives a Damn. I'm Lexy Silverstein, and this show is for anyone who loves fashion and is done pretending the industry is fine. Every week, we go deeper so you can shop smarter, spend better, and stop getting played. Now, let's get back to today's guest. Today, I'm talking with Ariel DeLa Cruz, an urban environmental activist and community organizer focused on bridging wellness with environmental justice through education, food systems, and community-based sustainability. If you're new here, head to LexySilverstein.com for more information on sustainable fashion and eco-conscious living. And if you love what you hear, subscribe and share this episode. It helps more than you think. Ariel, welcome. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I am good. I'm so excited to chat. Thanks so much for jumping on today. I want to start with your journey. So, what initially drew you to environmental activism, and how did it evolve into what you're doing today?
Uh, I want to note to you that I actually didn't grow up outdoors. Yeah. I went to the parks and I went to the beaches, but it wasn't something that my parents really cared to take me out to. But during college, I took a backpacking class. So I was in school for biology, for pre-med, thinking I was going to go down that route. And I just really needed a fun outlet. So I was taking all of these fun classes. I took dance, so now I like salsa dance, and it's been like for 10 years. But I took all these fun classes, and I took this backpacking class, and I didn't know what it was, and everything that I knew was just like tossed out the window. I really thought that it was a class that we would just be walking. I
Mm.
thought we would just be walking at a park. And it was my first time to camp. It was my first time to backpack. It was my first time to climb a mountain. And so it was all these firsts. And at this point in my life, I was like early 20s. And I was just like, yeah, let's go for it. What do I have to lose? And I mentioned this story because it was the first time I ever felt elated. I grew up thinking about who did I want to be and what did I want my career to look like and how much money did I want to make and where did I want to go out and where did I want to go with my friends. And it was the first time I ever felt peace. And I never knew how that could feel until that moment. And right until you've experienced those experiences, you never know what it could be. And I just remember thinking after that class, thinking about it, I was just like, how do I get more people to feel like this? This is amazing. Like, why don't we all do this? Like, why haven't I felt like this before? And I would say that feeling has been like my guiding light. So it's like, how do I feel more like this? Because, right, we live in this world that it's full of distractions, right? Of media, of what we think we should be doing, of society. And I didn't know exactly that I wanted to get into the environmental field at that moment, but understanding that it was just fun and it was freeing. And then slowly, as I went on my journey, I was thinking about what did I want to do? I knew that I didn't want to go into the medical field anymore, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to step into. And as I kept doing these trips with my friends and I traveled around a bit, I just kept thinking about I love the feeling of being outside and how do I get more people to feel like this? And I think as we're going through the journey of our adulthood, we never know what is the next step. But I decided I was going to go into grad school. And then I got my master's in sustainability leadership, not knowing exactly what that was going to be like or what I was going to learn entirely. And not even knowing if that was like a field that I really wanted to go into. But I decided I was going to go get my master's. And then when I went to go get my master's, I didn't even think at the end of it, right? Kind of when you graduate from anything, you think about what is my next job and what am I going to pour into next? And I actually didn't want to pick a full-time career at that moment. And I decided I was going to get a job. There was an opportunity for me to work with an organization that provides school gardens. And I remember just thinking, oh, how amazing would that be? I get to work outside, and I had experience working with community. And then I needed to broaden my networks here. So I was really reaching out to environmental orgs. And so that is kind of a little bit after that was like after I graduated from my master's. And then it was also during COVID. And I was just like, what do we have to lose? Let's just go for it all. And that really started everything of the environmental work that I do today.
That's amazing. I feel the same way where every time I go to a beach or a field, or like
Yeah.
it's like the saying that everyone's like, go touch grass, but actually lives are changed. I step outside and I'm like, oh my God, I need to be outside all of the time. It is so nice to be a part of nature. And I feel like especially because I'm not from California. Not
Mhm.
that Maryland is not pretty, it is, but I didn't have mountains like we do in California. And sometimes I'll just be driving and I look around and I'm like, it's just so crazy that our planet looks like this and that we're taking it for granted. It shocks me sometimes. And then I am like, okay, but also this is a reminder of like why we're doing what we're doing. And so I love that you kind
Mhm.
of had that experience. And I agree. If we can get more people outside and we can get them surrounded by community and people that are doing the same thing, whether it's going on a hike all together or learning about sustainability more straight on, I feel like all of that it makes me feel rejuvenated.
In my understanding, for me, that there's never a time that I regret going outside.
Yeah.
And even if I'm tired, and I know that's a lot of the reasons like why we don't go outside. You're like, oh, I'm tired, or but it's from the other things of our lives. And I really wish people valued how much they felt after when they do, whether it's the beach or the park
Mhm.
or out to the mountains, but understanding that's a little harder to do sometimes. But I
Yeah.
love that you share the same feeling.
Yeah, I do. I really do. This is making me be like, okay, after this podcast, I'm stepping outside because I have yet to today. You talk a lot about bridging wellness with environmental justice. So, what does this look like in practice?
For me, when I'm bridging those two, it is everything that I've learned so far within my environmental journey. So I'll note that I've been working in this space for 8 plus years. I've probably have worked for every different type of environmental nonprofit, and understanding my own journey of what the outdoors means to me. For me to go outside, it's yes, it's beautiful and I get to appreciate things more, but at the same time, it's my way of taking care of myself. It's my form of pouring into me. It's my self-care. But then I think also working with the communities that I have been and understanding that, yes, I want to provide these outdoor spaces and green spaces and opportunities, but it's not easy to do. And I think about a lot about the environmental and social injustices that come with going outside. That one, we may not have green spaces that are walkable to us. I think about how if you didn't grow up going outdoors, where are you going to learn that? But then also, I think about transportation. I think about just in general, as a person of color, that it's not always the safest for us to go outside. But then also being a woman to go out by yourself, it's also not easy. And I think how much I care about our well-being in the societies that we live in today. Even though I don't know the exact stats, but I feel that like where our society is that we have higher levels of anxiety and depression and anxiety. And some of the things that can alleviate that is by going outside more, removing ourselves from these stressors and pressures of life. But that, even though that's easier said than done, there's also these underlying issues that prevent us from doing so. And I really just care. One, it's to get people outdoors more for their overall well-being, but then also nurturing our relationship with nature. And that is very disconnected in our societies in terms of the places that we live in and just like how we work and maybe what we might see on media. Going outside isn't as glamorous as some of the other things you might see instead. And wanting to appreciate a more simple life than, we'll say, a more glitz and glam life. And so for me, wellness is one of the top priorities because that's how we move as a society to making sure that we take care of ourselves,
Mm.
but then also how do we take care of our communities? And then not only our communities and environments, but that's everything. It's not just the people, it's also the planet. So trying to combine all of these things, for me, it's my purpose, but it's also my passion project. Just like how do we do it and how do we do it sustainably and how do we do it where it is accessible?
I think with that, I think a misconception is that in order to be sustainable, it always has to be expensive or that it is inaccessible. And I think that is true to an extent. There's a level of sustainability, especially for when you talk about the fashion industry. If you want to support a sustainable brand, yes, that's going to be like you're more expensive because it's a t-shirt that everyone on the supply chain got paid and is worked correctly and is working in safe conditions and it's going to last you the rest of your life and not release a ton of microplastics into the water. So you're paying for the quality of that. But I think that sustainability doesn't always have to be that way. So from your experience working directly in communities, what do you think that about that misconception?
And it's like how you mentioned that when people think about sustainability, we think that it has to be like one way. When I think about sustainable companies, it is more expensive
Mhm.
than a majority of the rest of, we'll say, companies or products. And it doesn't have to look a certain way. I think it's how sustainability is especially portrayed in media, that it looks very clean cut, that it looks aesthetically pleasing. Like I think about neutral colors or whatever it may be, but that there is no way to be sustainable. People would ask me this question too. What's one thing that I can do to be sustainable or to save the planet? And the thing is, I can't tell you it. I can't tell you exactly what to do because there is no one way, but it really depends on what you value. And right, everyone has different preferences. I know you mentioned to me, I think you said that you've been a vegetarian. I don't know if you said vegetarian or vegan since you were small, and I've been a pescatarian since, gosh, since I was like in middle school.
Mhm.
But I'm never going to tell someone, then this is for me. I'm never going to tell someone you need to stop eating meat
Yeah.
because this is someone's preference. Whether it's tied to cultural background or maybe it's something that they enjoy eating, or sometimes even though not necessarily here but in different countries that's what they have to eat. So how can I tell someone to do something where I don't live their same lived experience?
Mhm.
But just thinking about how sustainability, if we think about it in someone's mind, what does that look like? What is the definition? And I remember really thinking about the definition and looking it up too, and it talks about using the resources that we have today to meet our needs right now, but that doesn't take away from the needs of future generations. And I think a lot of what people think sustainability is, they think about these green products and is it ethically sourced, which is true and which we do want to do, but it is also this very selfless act of I have to think about what do I actually need
Mhm.
instead of wants, because I think a lot of the things that we think we need is just wants.
Yeah.
But then it's also thinking about the future generations of how do I make sure that there's enough to go around? And I think that not a lot of people think about that in terms of sustainability. They just think about the present day, but not necessarily future thinking.
Yeah, I think also we're in so much of a consumption habit right now. We just consume, and I think that's the other thing is there's such an art to slowing down And that goes back to our earlier conversation where it's like going outside and taking a walk sometimes. And when I am anxious, I did this the other day. I was at my friend's house and I was so anxious. And she was like, why don't we just go on a walk? And I don't usually do this. I don't, yeah, usually I take a propanol and then I try to not feel anxious anymore. I'm like, I'm not, I need to utilize a walk more. But she had suggested going for a walk and running to Trader Joe's and getting some food. And we just walked and we like
Yeah.
talked and we were out in the environment. And I was just like, this is so nice. I really need to do this when I feel more anxious. And so I think that, yeah, I think we need to be wary of how we're consuming and what we're doing and slowing down. And that, like you were saying, there's no one definition of how to be sustainable. It's like, this is your journey and you're going to figure it out along the way. Like when I started my sustainable journey, the things that I was doing back then, I look at now and I'm like, that was so unsustainable of me. But at that time, I was like, dang, I'm the most sustainable person to ever walk this planet. And now I'm so much more sustainable of a human being than I was back then. And I'm sure when I look forward in 5 years or something, or even next week, I'm gonna be like, I can't believe I was doing that.
Yeah.
So it's a journey.
There's one thing that I want to note where this is the one thing that I hate about sustainability is that there's a lot of blame and
Mm,
that you're not doing enough. Or sometimes if we feel that if I'm not doing enough, why should I even do anything? What difference is it going to make?
what's the
Right?
point?
What difference is it going to make if I drink this out of if I use this water bottle or whatever it may be, right? And I think that's what gets to people a lot. And I think about change a lot because no one wants to be told that what they're doing is wrong. And
Mm,
I think when we're going into sustainability is like this newer term that has been circulating in our societies way more, I would say way more prevalently than maybe years ago. And when something is new, no one wants to be told, oh, you're doing this wrong
yeah.
and you need to be better. And it is a lot of self-reflection of, oh, just like kind of you mentioned, you thought that you were like the shit doing all this stuff, and then now you see yourself, actually, I wasn't. And I'm so much better that I'm so glad that I'm doing so much better now.
Yeah.
And it is this journey of just, okay, let me just do this one thing. And it's something that I enjoy. I enjoy doing for myself and right and for other people and for the planet and just see where it takes me. But
Hmm.
there's just so much guilt and blame with it and not getting so caught up with it.
Yeah, completely. I think it's just important to do what you can in the moment. And yeah, that's something that I feel like I lately have been experiencing a lot where I'll be seeing people doing all these crazy sustainable things and I'm like, oh, I should be doing that. And I'm like, I just don't even know where to start, whatever. And I'm like, I literally will take a step back and be like, okay, you know what? I had a conversation the other day with my family and I was talking about this thing I have in my shower that saves water for when it's heating up. The shower's heating up and I like put
Okay.
it's called like a save us. It's like a more aesthetic version of just putting a bucket in your shower while your shower heats up.
Okay.
And I was talking about
Yeah.
it and I was like, yeah, it's really cute. I really like using it. And then I can use that water to water my plant. I have one plant,
Mm.
plant singular. I am an overbearing plant mother who tends to overwater my plants and then kill them. So I'm sticking with one. And once I have experted
Yeah.
that, I will move on to two. But
Yeah.
I was talking about it because I was like, oh, because people put buckets in their in their shower and it's not aesthetic. And everyone was like, wait, what? People do that? And I was like, yeah, to save water. And they were like, wait, I've never even thought of doing that. And I was like, okay, my family does not live in California. Mind you, I was not doing it before I got this bucket thing, but like I've heard of people doing it and it's a
Yeah.
common practice, I feel like. And I was like, okay, California's
Yeah.
been in a drought for a million years. I maybe that's just a difference there, but I was like, okay, see, this is a good conversation because now I'm talking to them about, oh, they should do it. I made them all order the thing that I was talking about. So I got one, two, three, four, five people to order this thing for their showers. And then the conversation also got started.
Yeah.
But then it also was like, okay, you know what? I'm doing the thing. And maybe I see other people doing more, but eventually I'll get there and I'm doing my good deed of I'm doing this thing that I care about. I'm saving water, but I'm also telling people about it and I'm getting them to also save water. And so maybe tomorrow I'll pick up a new sustainable activity. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's easy to guilt yourself. And I feel like it's harder for maybe not everyone, but for myself to cheer myself on or pat myself on the back for something that I'm already doing when I'm like, oh, I should
Yeah.
be doing this, I should be doing this. And so we have to remember to step back and do the pat on the back.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard to, I try to express gratitude every day, not only for what's in my life, but just like how much I'm doing. Because
Mhm.
you can always think of what could be more, but being really present, I'm just like, yeah, I'm actually doing a lot and I'm much further from where I was before.
Mhm.
I'm glad that you have started getting your family to invest in this kit. I don't know
Yeah,
exactly what it looks like, but to invest in this, I think one of the things that we need to be having more is the conversations of what we're doing.
yeah,
Because when they have a direct connection of someone doing something instead of a product that's out there, then that makes more impact of just, okay, Lexy did it and I can do it too. And
yeah,
she's going to help me step by step of what does that actually mean of, okay, let's order it.
yeah. Literally, that has changed so much of like how I think I have conversations with people, meeting people where they're at, and having the conversation in a way that isn't scolding of, oh, you shouldn't shop from that company, but more of, oh, I got this shirt and it's on trend or whatever, and you said that you liked it. And little did you know I got it from this really cute small business, and it's made out of upcycled clothes that she got at a thrift store or something. And so it's like making sustainability sexy, making it fun, making it interesting, and not making it like
Mhm.
judgmental place.
It does take those conversations to influence one person. And it reminds myself that in this work, I know, and maybe you've learned this too, that we can't change everybody.
Hmm.
That's not our goal. Our goal is never to try to change the world or save the planet, even though that is higher thinking to be able to do that. But also understanding the realistic side that not everyone's going to agree with me. Not everyone's going to care about what I say. And not everyone's going to have the same preferences or wants to live the same lifestyle. But the people who, the reasons why we keep sharing the things and the reasons why we do what we do is so those people can find us so
Hmm.
that we can bring them along. And so when we don't share it, it's just like nothing gets done, right? Nothing changes. So I'm glad that you're able just from your lifestyle alone. And I really think everything that we do, it really just has to do with our lifestyle and
Hmm.
our habits and what we value. That to me is just the core of sustainability, of just trying to integrate it more into our lives. And then
Hmm.
how do we integrate it into other people's lives?
Yeah, complete. And then it's a ripple effect. Like
Mhm.
I'm integrating it into mine. I've integrated it into my brother's. He lives with his girlfriend. And so now it's getting integrated in her life. And
Yeah.
then people will come over to their house and he'll stick something in the composter and they're like, what the heck
Yeah,
is that? And then it gets integrated into their lives and so on and so forth. And so it's like word of mouth marketing, literally.
it is.
And it's really cool to see happen. Anyways, you've spent years working in urban gardens and teaching kids about food systems. So speaking of food and speaking of composting and all that jazz, what's something that has really surprised you about how disconnected people are from where their food comes from?
Uh, I've been working in gardens for 5 years now, particularly school gardens. And even for me, when I was like, as I've been working this job, for me and for the students, it's like how much time and energy and resources it takes to actually make food. I think we take that for granted. So not only when we think about if we toss away food, we let's say it's an apple. We toss away an apple, we just see it as an apple. But for me now, I see it as not only am I tossing away this apple, I'm tossing away the sunlight, the water, the labor that it went to take to pick this for me to have. Also, the resources, like the money for me to purchase this or for someone to buy it. And there's a disconnect of just how much time and effort it takes to actually make our food. And
Mhm.
so when I think about how our food is in our grocery stores, I'm always flabbergasted, just like, how do we have all this food when it takes so much time? And not only how much food there is just like how much land does that actually is required to produce it. I think about that. We don't have a great relationship with our food, that's for sure. But then also how we dispose of our food. I have been really into composting more now. And that was actually one of the things I felt like I had like imposter syndrome of like, how can I say I was sustainable or that was environmentally friendly when I didn't compost food scraps. But at the same time, I didn't necessarily have a system for myself to be able to do that. I didn't know where I could drop it off at this time. There wasn't any green bin in my community for me to drop it off easily. Thankfully, there's now, I think it's a state mandate. I believe that's the correct term, where you have to now provide resources to collect food scraps.
Mhm.
But working in the gardens in particular is just that we are just not appreciating food as much as we should and just what it takes to get to our plates. And it's really sad. It's really sad of it's not just about food itself, but it's also like our eating habits of like what would someone would rather eat than like having this like fresh and delicious food. But it's also what's available. And it's just, yeah, I wish we just had better relationships with our food.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I think it's the same when, again, my passion is fashion. So I'm like, I think it's the same. I think it's just honestly, again, like the way that we're consuming right now, like it's just ridiculous. Like we are so privileged to be on this planet and have such a gorgeous planet. And like the way in which we're consuming clothes is the same, where there's this huge fast fashion market now. Shein just bought Everlane. All our sustainable
Mm,
companies are leaving. Like,
right.
how are we supposed to function? And it's so many of the people out there's consuming habits are like you buy something, there's a trend, you buy it, you wear it once for an Instagram photo or an event, and then get rid of it. And you get rid of it by throwing it out or just sending it to Goodwill. And it's okay, Goodwill gets so many things. Like they don't need more. Like they can't possibly sell all this. And then not even that, it goes to Goodwill and then it goes to the Goodwill bins. And then it goes to
Yeah.
like it goes down a whole like trickle down system thing. And then it still ends up going to landfills. There's a very large percentage of clothes that get donated to, or just items in general that get donated to thrift stores that don't end up actually getting sold and still end up in landfills. And so it's just like how we consume things, like we just need to slow down. We need to think about, because it's the same, like our clothes aren't just our clothes. Like someone somewhere had something to do with putting that piece together or picking that apple for you, like you said. And so it's not just this thing that we easily bought online and it showed up to our door. There was a whole line of people that had to touch that
System.
piece before it got to you. And so we need to appreciate just our things more. I'm a big, maybe to a fault, where I have too much sentimental value with the things I own. So I don't want to get rid of things. So I do it too much. I should definitely probably get rid of a lot of things that I have in a sustainable way. But I'm like, I care about the things that I own. And I feel like that's not something that's practiced as much anymore, as having, yeah, caring and taking care of what we own. And that can be whether it's your clothes or, like you were saying, like food. That's something that I think I want to get more into, is less shopping from a grocery store and more going to the local farmers market on the weekend with my boyfriend, because he's gonna listen to me saying this podcast and he's like, girl, you don't go grocery shopping. He does the grocery shopping. He's gonna be like, in what world do you go grocery shopping? But shopping locally and supporting and going to a local farmers market is something that I am interested in doing more of, and that's supporting local economies, local businesses, and then also it's gonna give me better food than what I'm getting from wherever he goes grocery shopping. I don't know. Literally don't know anything.
No, I'm glad that you mentioned I'm glad you mentioned about the grocery stores because how our grocery stores are, they're filled to the brim. It's always replenished, it's always restocked. And some people, especially if they're younger, right? They might think that food just magically appears. But regardless if it's food or regardless if it's clothes, it's going to be coming from somewhere. And just thinking about like where does it come from? I think that is kind of the first step of just like how do you be more mindful with your buying habits?
Yeah.
Not even buying habits, but even I want us not to just be mindful of like how we buy, but how we dispose. And that is because when we dispose of things, then we're like, oh, I can have something new. And that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
And like even with food, right? We feel like we can just dispose of things or like, oh, I don't have to eat this because I can just buy more. But that's might be the case right now, but there's our systems are hurting so much because we have this type of culture that I can throw something out now and it's okay because I can just get it again.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've always had an issue with the people will say for your closets, one thing in, one thing out kind of concept of, okay, if I'm getting something, I'm getting rid of something. And I don't know, like to me, and I'm not always perfect at it for sure. I see a thrift store and sometimes I get thrift brain and I'm like, this is going to be really cute. And then I don't end up wearing it. But I have been much better about being very, again, I relate everything back to fashion because that's my area of interest. But this can be in any industry. But I've been trying and I really think I'm like so much pickier now about the things that I bring into my closet. And if I'm bringing it into my closet, my overall goal is to never get rid of it. My goal is to keep it forever. And the reason in which, like, why I bought it is because it's something that I'm going to want to keep forever. I'm never going to want to get rid of it. And that's why I purchased it. And obviously, it's not a perfect strategy. Yes, sometimes I do be getting rid of clothes. But even when I do that, like what you were saying of like how I get rid of it, it's, oh my God, it takes me like a year to get rid of a single thing. I have a whole closet, not a whole closet. I have a bag in a closet that I'm looking at of clothes that I want to get rid of. It's actually actively not in that closet because it's been donated to an organization that you can actually buy my clothes right now, and all the proceeds go to Heal the Bay in Los Angeles, which is a great ocean conservation organization. But usually I have a bag of clothes that I'm trying to get rid of, and it's been there forever. It's a few items that I just cannot for the life of me find out or figure out how to get rid of. But they're like nice pieces. I'm just looking for the right person to give them to. And so my whole process when getting rid of my clothes is that I, try it on. I decide maybe it doesn't fit me anymore, whatever. I we'll see if it maybe if there's like stains on it, if it's a good quality, like is it cute, whatever. And if it's cute and I think it's maybe just doesn't fit me, I'll give it to a friend. I feel like we need to normalize regifting. It is so underhyped. If you are not going to use something, just give it to someone else that will use it. It's not a big deal. So I will give it to a friend. I commonly, what I'll do is my friends get thrift bundles for every occasion. And sometimes I'll just randomly do it. But when I go to a thrift store, because I already have so much stuff, sometimes I'll look and I'll be like, oh, this is so my friend. And then I buy something and then I'll have it in my closet until her birthday comes up and I'll give her a thrift bundle. Or when I'm getting rid of clothes, if there's a bunch of them and I think that they fit one of my friend's style and they're all good and they're all cute, they're just maybe not my style anymore or they don't fit me anymore or whatever, I will give them to my friend. And then if they don't want it, then I'll list it on Depop or Poshmark or eBay or whatever, and I'll try to sell it. And then if it doesn't sell, I'll try to take it to like Crossroads or something like that. And again, if it doesn't sell, then I put it into two categories of, okay, is this not selling because it's just not anyone's style, or is it not selling because it's not a good quality or something? In which case, if it's not, it has a stain on it or something, I'll put it in a trashy bag, which then they take it and they turn it into stuffing for your couch, or they usably, yes, sustainably reuse it. There we go. Or if I think it can be resold, then I will take it to Goodwill or a local thrift shop or something. But it takes me so long to get to the thrift shop part that I've had the item for a year before I got rid of it. And I'll never throw clothes out ever. So I think yes, that seems very long and no, you don't necessarily need to do anything like that, but I think how we dispose of things and even just for brands and how they create things should look into the end of life and how we're getting rid of stuff. Again, I went on a tangent.
No, I love that. I wanted to mention about what you mentioned. I'm glad it's so admirable that your intention is you won't throw something away
Yeah.
because that is something so hard. If I don't like something anymore, I donate it. I don't necessarily throw it in the trash or anything like that, unless it's ripped, even though I hate to do that too. I'm just like, what
Yeah,
do I do with these ripped clothes?
it's hard.
It is. And I know I think about Goodwill too. It's just like Goodwill doesn't necessarily need all of these clothes. So I should also try to source this, okay, where else can I give them? Sometimes when I don't want clothes anymore, I will do this. I will hoard clothes for a long amount of time and I'll kind of look through them and I'll see, oh, this would be good for so and so. And I'll give them first dibs of I saved these for you. You look through them. If you want them, great. If you don't, it's now a free for
Yeah,
all and I'm going to just give them away. But yeah, clothes is definitely a hard one for me. I'm
yeah.
just like,
No,
what do
it's
we
hard.
do? So I was like, I'm just gonna be super mindful of what I buy right now.
Yeah, I think that's the key because then if you like it enough, you won't even have to think about the end of how to get rid of it. After my long tangent, I want to ask more about you. You've worked with students from a really young age. Why do you think it's so important to introduce sustainability and environmental awareness earlier on?
Because they're sponges. And that's like the great thing about kids because they're at this age of maybe not wanting to learn, but they are learning. I
Yeah.
don't know necessarily. I love to learn. There might be some, but most are just like, I want to do my own thing. But at this age, they are sponges, right? They're learning from their environments. They're learning from the people that they trust in and who they can look up to, especially teachers, and then also their family, and just understanding that when they're in this phase of their lives where they're a little bit more open, then it's easier to reach out to them. And right,
Hmm.
hoping, like for me, I really care to nurture this relationship of nature for them so that as they grow throughout time, they're gonna keep the earth in mind in their decisions because they haven't made those, we'll say solid concrete, this is the way that I am. But how everyone moves, we move with what we care about. And so if they care about the earth, at least we know that that's going to be in the back of their mind. For me, how I got this garden job, I like to call it garden job. They're called ground education, and we provide, and it's just like an easier way for me to reference it. So we provide school gardens to elementary schools. One of the reasons like how I got there was because in kindergarten we raised chickens. And that's one of the lessons that we actually do with the organization. We teach chick lessons. And I remember just, oh my gosh, I remember raising chicks when I was in kindergarten and I loved it so much. Like, why would I not want to work for them? But then also just thinking about we have this responsibility too of just like how do we want to lead the upcoming generation? They look up to us. So if I'm going to teach them anything, I want to teach them something that I think that is worthwhile. that it's going to impact their lives. And one of the things that I think about is how I always want kids to be kids. And I want to rob them of that joy and that whimsy and that playfulness. And I don't want them to grow up too early. But at the same time, I need them to also understand the environments that they're about to grow into, that the earth is warming, and I don't want to necessarily hide that away from someone. I don't want it to be the only thing I talk about with
Yeah.
them, but I also want them to know that this is also happening in our earth and there's endangered species and just like all of the, we'll say, environmental issues we deal with, right? Water pollution, air pollution, and the list can go on. But it's a fine balance of like how much do you have those conversations with them at a young age and still have them be this innocent child that you want them to just be really focused on what do you want to play today.
Yeah.
Um, but just knowing that they are going to set the future of what then the next generations will be like. So it is really early to have those conversations with them at a young age because we already know how adults are. Adults are stubborn as fuck. Once they
No,
like made up their
truly,
Yeah, once
like
they made up their
really.
mind, this is who I am, and like I
Yeah.
don't give a shit. Why does
Yeah.
it matter? Those are the people that's so hard to change.
Yeah. It's like
And so just like,
impossible.
yeah, because you have to let go, you have to let go of your ego. Who are you to tell me what I need to do?
Yeah.
I've been doing me for so long
Yeah.
and I've been fine. And so I also think about that. Being able to outreach to kids is the super sweet spot. It's the easier part, but working with the adults is the harder
Yeah.
part. I actually I care to do now. I've worked with kids a lot, but now I'm just like I need to broaden my audience. It's just okay, now it's time for me to teach adults, which is not easy, I will say. I will
Oh
say
God,
that.
no. No. I think I know if I learned about when I had the realization in my brain that the meat I was eating on my plate was like an animal, it
Yeah.
immediately, I was like, oh, I'm not eating this. Again, what you were
Yeah.
saying earlier, I will never judge someone else for eating meat. I don't care what you do. This is just my preference. But that clicked in my brain, and I was like, oh, I'm not hungry. I'm not eating this. And my parents were like, oh, it's just a phase. Girl, it's not a phase. I was like, I've been a vegetarian since I was like 5. But that was something that once it clicked in my brain, I've gone about my life living that way. And so when it came to the fashion industry and when I switched from shopping fast fashion and not knowing what I was doing and not knowing about the brands I was supporting, that was a crazy kind of transition for me because it was so different from everything that I had been doing. But if someone had taught me at a young age, hey, just so you know, when you shop from Zara, like it's not going to be a sustainable option. People are suffering to make you that t-shirt, and then it's filled with chemicals and it's releasing microplastics and it's getting into our oceans and into our fish and it's coming back into you and affecting your health. Okay, hopefully someone would have said that in a much easier, nicer way to digest as at a young age. But if someone had said that to me when I was younger,
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't have needed to switch what I was doing with my life because it would have just been something that I would have been like, you know what? Like what you said, this information's been absorbed into my brain now.
Yeah.
And because of that, I don't want to shop from these brands. And it wouldn't have had to be even a switch that I need to make. And so it's so true. I have a very young niece and nephew, and their mom, for all the holidays, she gets everything off of the Facebook Marketplace and she thrifts them stuff and they do thrift miss. And so it's something that they'll probably practice in the future where instead of going and getting clothes from wherever, for the most part, maybe every
Yeah.
now and then they'll shop somewhere else, but maybe they'll grow up going thrifting and their Aunt Lexy will come and visit and they'll be forced to go thrifting with her. But that's just something that they'll do, and that's just how they know things are because their mom like secondhand sources their gifts for them. And so I think
Mhm.
having that at a young age is so cool and such a special experience to witness them having their lives be like that. And that's how my future children are about to be raised. They're about to thrift everything. I think it's just really interesting to see how, like, yeah, just if this is just their way of life, if thrifting is just their way of life, there doesn't need to be like a switch later in life. And then when it is later in life,
Yeah,
it's like you were saying, we're us adults, we're hard-headed and stubborn. And so if you've been doing something for however many years, it's hard to get you to switch and do it differently,
yeah.
even if it's
'Cause you're like,
better for the planet and better for everyone. But hopefully we'll get
you're
there.
like, there was no problem. So you think about like, there's no problem. Why would I do
Right.
anything? And we're not aware of the problems, right? That's the most, if it's like ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
You, when you, let's say when you buy a shirt, you're not thinking about the labor rights of the person who made it, where it's actually made, who, what materials and all this stuff. And so you're like, because there's no direct impact. I think that's why we don't change because you're like, well, it doesn't affect me now. You can't think about now. You have to think about later. And I think that's the hard part because no one wants to think about later.
Yeah.
No one wants to, they're like, I don't want to worry. Let me just, if anything, it's selfish. It's just, let me just think about what makes me feel good now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to think about the future of anything like that, like what you're saying for a t-shirt. That's an example I use a lot where I'm like, if you buy one $80 white t-shirt from a good sustainable company, you're gonna have that one $80 white t-shirt for the rest of your life. You spent $80 on it. You're gonna want to take care of it. You're gonna want to clean it. It's
Yeah.
made from good material, so it's not gonna fall apart after one wash. It was
Yeah.
like everyone up on that supply chain was paid fairly versus if I buy a $2 t-shirt off of Shein, I'm gonna get a stain on it and I'm not gonna care because I spent $2 on it, so I'm gonna throw it out and I'm
Yeah.
gonna buy another one for $2. But then throughout my life, I have now bought 80 $2 t-shirts, spent
Yeah.
double the amount that I would have if I had just gotten an $80 one t-shirt, but it's hard to think of it of the okay, $80 that one purchase is obviously much more expensive than the $2 t-shirt, but in the end, it's going to save you money, but it's hard to think of that big picture.
You just think, not that I haven't thought about it in this way, but you just saying, right, a $2 t-shirt, and it made my brain go into, isn't it crazy that there's t-shirts that are $2 where it's just like, how for someone to then, let's say if it's whatever material it is, there the labor itself is not $2. If for like here, I'm just like, and so I think, and then they're mass producing it. And I'm just like, how are things like $2? They shouldn't be $2.
I talk about this a lot when people, this sends me into a spiral where I'm like, people will bring up, oh, how do you know? How do you know that what's fast fashion? How do you know that they're not paying their garment workers correctly? How do you know that? And I'm like, guys, this is, I don't even, the proof is in the pudding. It's basic math. Come on. If a company needs profit from a t-shirt and they are selling it for $2, and it
Yeah.
needed to get dyed and someone sewed it together and it needed to be shipped and it needed to whatever and the cotton needed to be woven into a yarn for it to then turn into brick for the fabric to then turn into the whatever, or even just you buy the frickin' fabric and you turn it into a t-shirt. That in itself is costs more than $2. So I don't
Yeah.
really I don't really I don't really need more than the basic math. Obviously there's also facts and proof out there, but
Yeah.
it's just if how is a company making profit if they're selling a t-shirt for literally $2? That means
Yeah.
someone somewhere is not getting paid correctly.
Someone's getting paid pennies, if
Pennies,
anything,
literally
for that.
literally pennies. So ridiculous to think about. But anyways, this has been so great. I know we briefly talked about we can't really always give people tips because it's about where you and your journey is. But if you had to, what are your rapid fire quick tips for someone who is looking to just start a more sustainable lifestyle?
It's really about like when I think about this question, I think about I just want people to go outdoors more. If
Yeah.
people could go outdoors more and just have this better relationship of the sky. I'm looking at the sky right now. There's a window right in front of me, but just going outdoors and just understanding like how much the earth actually gives us in terms of feelings, what it provides for us, whether it's shade, it's the air, the sun. That's my, if there's anything I would want anyone to do, is just go outside. Go
Yeah.
outside and build a better relationship with it. Don't tell me that it's too hot. Don't tell me you don't, right? The conditions aren't great. The thing is, I've learned there's no such thing as bad weather. There's only bad clothing. So the earth is what it is, and it's always going to be how it is, and just appreciating for what it actually provides and
Yeah.
does for us. And then the second one is probably it all starts with you. Change isn't going to happen overnight. You can't change anybody. How can you change? How can you expect anyone to change if you can't change yourself? You can't have those hard conversations with yourself. And just to be open and to be kind with yourself of this journey, because it is more than just about the environment. It is, or resources, or the land, or the plants, or the animals. It really has to start with you and you really letting go of your ego, thinking that you know what's right, or thinking like, oh, this is what I did. It's just let's try to shift our thinking and what could we do better for ourselves. And so when I think about this, I think that there's not always a right or wrong because everyone have their own truths. And but I think we can all agree that all we really want to do is that we all want to be healthy. So whenever making decisions, think about, is it the healthiest choice for me? And then also, is it the healthiest choice for the planet? So
Yeah.
does it help or harm me? And does it help or harm the planet? And so those are my three tips that I
I
can
love
have.
those. Those are so perfect. Thank you so much. Where can people find you on social media or anywhere else?
People can find me at Ariel June on Instagram. I will say that I will be posting there of the upcoming events and projects that I have coming up. And so it has been great to connect with you, Lexi.
It has been so great to connect with you. Everyone go check her out on social media. Thank you so much. That's it for this week's episode of the Lexy Show Fashion That Gives a Damn. Big thanks to Ariel for showing us how sustainability starts at the community level and how reconnecting with our food, our environment, and each other can drive real change. Whether it's fashion or everyday products, this is how sustainability should work. If this conversation resonated with you, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, leave a review, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Head to LexySilverstein.com for more content on sustainable style and conscious consumption, and follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Lexy Silverstein. That's Lexy, silver like the color, Stein. Remember to live a good life and look fucking good doing it. Demand better from brands in your closet and everywhere else. See you next week.